lot of trouble to try to understand what exactly it was that the Lord was doing with our local church ministry here in Geylang in Singapore. I'll show you a picture of our ministry in just a minute. But let me say that it's been a tough journey for all of us, having gone through this season of contagion and cloister. One of the areas that we are still looking at is the area of the shifts, or what we call the kingdom shifts. I want to introduce you also to a friend of mine who is also part of this group that we have been learning from. And so the phrase that came forth, or the verse that really encompassed what the shifts that God was doing in the local church, at least here in Asia, we saw this phrase that came to me, this prophetic word. And I wanted to share this to you in case there are any pastors or pastors' wives or pastors' children, or indeed any ministry leader. You're leading a ministry in the kingdom sense of going into the marketplace. You're doing media, you're doing YouTube, you're doing Facebook, whatever you're doing. I want you to present or suggest or submit to you this vision the Lord has given me based around this message. And it comes from Micah chapter 4, verse 4. And let me just read the form of the prophecy that came to me. We are a family of churches doing family. Okay, let that sink in just a little bit. What does it mean to be a family of churches doing family? That means putting priority on the home. So this is the first area that God had revealed to the church worldwide, that we need to get back into doing home church, to understand that the first altar that we have, the first place of worship, is actually in the home. Okay, so we're a family of churches doing family. And then secondly, we are looking for the 7,000. Okay, we are looking for the 7,000. This is not a number, this is a symbol. 7,000 means those that are willing to lay down their lives for Christ in dark and terrible times ahead that we read about in the book of Revelation. All right, this is not the sleeping church. This is the church that is awakened by the Spirit, like a bride that is awakened before the coming of the bridegroom. Okay, I take it that those of you who are on this program, you have been awakened, or you're slowly being awakened. Okay, and you're rubbing your eyes and rubbing the sleep out of your eyes, because you realize that things are not the same. Things are not as it was before March 2020, right? And we look for the 7,000, and we hear the lions roar. This is talking about Jesus. We're hearing the lions roar over the next generation of Elisha-sons and daughters. So this is where the commission for us to experience God's love and pass it on. So we're passing it on. We're passing the baton on to the next generation of Elisha-sons and daughters. Now, it will include our family, but it goes beyond our family to our spiritual roof, or our spiritual family members, right? And with each that we win to the Lord, each one under his own vine and fig tree, under his own vine and fig tree. That's when I began to make a study together with my wife. We put this Christmas broadcast specially for you, so that you can get up to speed on this prophetic message for Singapore, for Malaysia, for Pakistan, for India, Vietnam, for Philippines and China and Indonesia, all the nations in Asia, and all in various time zones. God is speaking. He's bringing us back to the basics. He's bringing us back to family. And it says there, most importantly, it says there, and none shall make them afraid. Now, how do I know that this is true? Well, it's because when we initially went through COVID, the initial phases of COVID, we were very afraid. I believe that is a sign of panic. If you had panicked and if you had been afraid of getting sick, afraid of this, afraid of that, then it meant that we were not where we ought to be. It's a warning. It's a rehearsal. It's a preparation of the bride for the coming of the bridegroom. The fact that we were so panicking, right? Buying toilet paper and instant noodles and doing other irrational things, it meant that we were not secure under our fig tree and our vine. It mentions a vine and fig here, but we're going to be looking at the 7 different trees and grasses, or all the 7 different seeds that are to be presented. So each family will have a logo. Each family will have a tree or a symbol. All right. You need to know 2 things. First of all, what is your elemental archetype? And secondly, what is your motif for your family, your particular spiritual roof or your umbrella over which the people come under and take shade? Okay, there are 7 of them. All right, so let's take a look at the 7 then. And starting at the top left-hand corner, you can see there barley, wheat, figs, dates, pomegranates, grapes, and olives. So there's your 7. The first 2, top left corner, are grasses that produce grain, but these are the approved grains to bring into the tabernacle. The rest are species that produce its own kind. Now, this is important because every family will have its own distinctive flavor, and father, mother, children, and so on and so forth. Everyone under your roof, your physical roof and your spiritual roof, will have its own particular flavor. But within that spiritual roof, you'll have a variety of different modal excellencies. So you could say that one is a sort of a family anointing or mantle or hat that you wear, an assignment that you go out into the world as a family. And then you could also see it as individually, you have been gifted differently from other family members. Okay, so the 7 seeds tell us more about our identity and is far more revealing about ourselves than you think. Each seed in creation produces a multitude of effects that build up and edify according to its own kind. All right, so let me just give 3 examples: the olive, the wheat, and the vine. Okay, so the olive, when pressed, produces virgin oil. Okay, the flour, when sifted and fired, produces fresh bread. And the vine, the grapes from the vine, in the vat, likewise, they produce vintage wine. So first, in the natural, we have to see that these produces, agricultural produces, go through a irreversible process, okay? From left to right, from olive to oil, from wheat to bread, from grapes to vintage wine. In other words, it's irreversible. Once you come to Jesus and you submit to him, he brings you, as he has been bringing the church in the past, year and a half or more, almost 2 years now, through a process. We cannot go back to where we were before in 2019. Would you agree with me? All right. If you are set in your heart to move on with the Lord, you will find that fear does not come to you again. Let me ask you this question. If you had to do 2019, 2020 over again, what would you do differently? The answer is be so fearful, right? You wouldn't be so fearful because the bug was not for you, right? I'm sure you know this by now. It was to test you. It was to harden your resolve. It was to make you more flexible in terms of understanding the new thing that God is doing in your life. Okay, so these are not just symbols in nature, all right, but they hold future truth. They hold future truth yet to be discovered by the sons of Adam and the daughters of Eve, who return back to the garden. All right, beloved, we came out of a garden, remember, Adam and Eve. So we are, you can say we are in the world now, we are in the world, but not of it. And we are of the garden, but not yet in it. Okay, the reason why we are in the world is because we have been sent out by Jesus of the garden. As much as we would like to remain in the garden, we can't. We have been called and summoned out of the garden into the world. Now we will enjoy the garden, but only, when we come to the place of, great is your reward in heaven. But right now we are the church militant. We are fighting and contending for truths, and especially the honor of our great Messiah King, the Khan of Khans, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. And what he wants, he gets. It's as simple as that. That's what a Christian is meant to do. That's what a martyr is meant to do, is to lay down your life for your King, in the service of your King. Now, how are we to serve our King? Well, you're going to find out in these 7 different seeds, because each of them have a certain modality. All right. Now, we are sent into the world to take dominion, but not by might. We don't use the weapons of our warfare, are not carnal. Okay. And we impact society, but not by power. We are using our God-given breath and the words that we speak. We move from the sword to the scepter, as Wanda Alger says in her book, moving from the sword to the scepter. Okay, and we make a difference to the extent we understand what I'm calling the periodic table of human behavior. Now, I'm not going to deal with that today, but when you take these seeds and stretch them on a table for male and for female, you'll find 7 times 7, there are 49 different permutations, especially for couples, husbands and wives. And it's a very interesting study, but it's critical that we understand the psychiatry and design of the spirit of a man. okay, of a person. This is the design of the Father from our mother's womb. This is your genetic, your DNA, okay? And that's the reason why we have to be very careful when, scientists go into the inner sanctum of the womb, for example. We don't allow to have, gynecologists, for example, going around, poking around inside a woman's womb and testing amniotic fluids and blah, 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 this, that, and the other, because you're afraid. Again, you see, you're panicked. The doctor told you, oh, there's so many percent of, that the child will turn out to have Down syndrome, et cetera, et cetera. You see, for the Christian, for the believer, the more secure you are under your vine and your fig tree, the more you are under your olive or your pomegranate tree, the more you understand that you belong where you belong. Maybe it's the palm, the date palm tree, or maybe it's under the beneficence of the wheat fields or the barley fields for you. The more you will be secure where in yourself and in the way God has created you. All right. So we are created in the image of God, but specifically it is described in nature by the 7 seeds that we're going to look at today. It's decoded in the tabernacle of Moses. We may look at the tabernacle of Moses another time. It is defined in the early church by Apostle Paul. We'll briefly look at 1 Corinthians 14:26 today, but we're not going to go into detail there. We'll do that another time. And then it's declared in the apocalypse, in the 7 churches of the apocalypse by Jesus and the angels of those 7 churches. Again, we'll not have time to go into that. Today, we just want to do the 7 seeds. All right. So remember, we are in the world, but not of it. We are of the garden, but not in it. Okay. So now let's take a look at the first of the 7, which is wheat. Now, we're going to make a difference between wheat and barley. All right. And those of you who are actual farmers, please forgive me, especially if you're in a different time zone and you actually are farming these products, because I am a city coo. Okay. I'm born in a city. I know nothing about the farmlands, but I do read the Bible, and especially Isaiah 28:28, which lays out the design or the process. Again, it's irreversible. All these processes are irreversible. So once you come to Jesus, if this is you, he's going to bring you through an irreversible process. As grain for bread is crushed. Okay, you may not like this message because it's talking about crushing. Discipleship is crushing. Discipleship is the breaking off of the outer husk, the outer life, the externality and the physicality of your life, revealing fine flour. And that's not all. Once the fine flour is revealed, then comes the sifting of the wheat, like what Jesus talked about to, who was it? Peter, I think it was. And, that sifting refines and removes impurities and prepares you for the kneading process, the painful process of kneading. And then after the kneading, there's more. It's not over yet. You're left on the shelf. There's proofing, yeasting, and that takes time. And you're wondering, what in the world is going on? It seems like nothing is happening in my life. God, what are you doing? And then he starts to, pick you up again after some time and And finally, you see that things are moving in your life again. But then it starts to get rather hot. And then, you realize that you're in the oven now, and the oven is heated up. And he says, I will meet you in the fire. So, this is real. This is discipleship, folks. It's an irreversible process, right? And wheat, if you think about it, it's significant because when it is being processed into bread, or in the case of rice, it's being cooked into, fried rice of some sort, and you eat it, it fills your stomach. It satisfies you. It is a sign. Every time you have a full stomach is a sign of divine favor. All these 7 seeds is all about divine favor, okay, on your life. So if you have a full stomach, it means God's favor is upon you. But take note, the favor of God will bring about a total change of heart and mind, right? This is what Moses did through his cogent clarity and encyclopedic knowledge of God. If you read the book of Deuteronomy, you'll find that Moses is far more famous for his writings and his compilation of the Torah than he was for his leadership, because many could argue that when they were just 11 days away from Egypt at the border of Kadesh Barnea, he was a poor leader. He called for a democratic vote, and he asked the people, do you think we should go in the land or not? And 10 of them said, no, we can't go in. And 2 of them, Joshua and Caleb, said, no, we can go in. For sure, we can go in. Well, at that point, that Moses was not a leader. He was a teacher. He was not a proistemi. We're going to learn about that later. He was a didasco. Because if he had been a proistemi, he would have just said, look, stop all this, take up your arms, follow me, we're going to take the land. And you wouldn't have had that 40 years going round and round in the wilderness. All right. So it is Moses that brought about a total change of heart and mind through cogent clarity and encyclopedic knowledge of God that establishes the law of Israel. So this seed message has everything to do with Israel and the example that Israel is to the world. She is as it were, a microcosm. And you can see that right now, can't you, in modern day, the modern state of Israel. All right. Now, so the first seed, it speaks symbolically of the gift of the teacher, the gift of the one who has been gifted from your mother's womb. I'm not talking about people who learned how to teach. Let's say they went to the Ministry of Education and they learned how the didactic principles and so on. I'm not talking about, I'm talking about people like Cesar Millan, who just can teach you all about dogs of a particular area, all right? And he just draws life lessons from there and so on and so forth. I'm talking about Noah Webster, who wrote the English dictionary, or any number of philosophers and teachers that we've had down through the centuries, especially Christian ones. All right, so the Greek word for that is didasko. So let's look at didasko then. There's a distinctive flavor to didasko. How do you know that somebody has this didactic gift? Well, there are 8 different markers, if you like, that you're looking for. The way that they interact with the world, the way that they have a future forecast, the way they have leadership. How do they lead? How do they solve problems? How do they learn new things? How do they relate to other teachers? And where do they get their recharge? There's probably more than that, but this is just the initial research that we're finding. Firstly, let's take a look. They have cogent clarity. All right. It's like whenever you're with a teacher, it's like a new pair of glasses that corrects your vision, okay, from ground zero to cap and gown. The second DNA is the way they interact with the world and the way they impart values to the next generation. That's the key. They pass the baton. They're passionate about reproduction and replication to the next generation. The third area is how they see the future, monitoring the progress in their students and respecting individual styles. A true teacher will not have a one-size-fits-all for his student. It'll be closer to a home school than a public school or a government school, all right? The home school, the mother or the father will tailor make the learning pace and the content and the level of difficulty according to the student. It's very different from public education or even private education, where there's a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, and there's just only a variety of classes you can be in, okay? No, this is individualized learning. And the way that they lead is simply by being able to break down very complex processes into very simple component parts, and that makes sense, and that make you want to give it a try and give it a go. Life is very much like a juggling act, where you have so many different variables in your life, and you need to be able to handle, they call it, before you reach task saturation, like a pilot in the cockpit. He has 1,001 different buttons to be looking at, right? And especially if he's in the midst of combat, don't ask him about whether, don't expect him to be able to answer his emails in the middle of a dogfight. All right, he's got task saturation, so he can't think of more than what is on his hands. So a teacher will teach you how to drill it in until it becomes second nature in you. Okay, like driving a car or riding a bicycle. All right. The way that excuse me, the way that the didactics, they solve problem is through a very logical sequence of analysis, and that bring you to a place where you can say, oh, I see. Oh, I see. This idea, it's very pragmatic, and it is their genius, the genius of the teacher. All right, this is the wheat. Remember, this is the seed of the wheat. This is the distinctive flavor. Now, how does the people who belong to this wheat, or this umbrella grouping of the didasco, how do they learn new things? Well, they disambiguate, all right? And basically they untangle what is tangled, and they're very good at undoing knots, intellectual knots or otherwise, all right? And perhaps this is, if you had a lot of trouble during the COVID period to try to untangle the different issues that we all faced as a people going through this crisis, perhaps it was because of a lack of teachers being able to be qualified and bold enough to step forward. But there were many teachers who did step forward, but many of them were not saying things that fit with the narrative, and so they were sidelined. Some of them were made to disappear in China. All right, that's sad. All right, but anyway, truth suffers at the hands of tyranny, oftentimes when God is not on his, when the intercessors are not praying. All right, so next we have the way that teachers relate to teachers. All right, you'll find that they champion for more and more accurate description and precise analyses, and they clarify muddied waters. So this is the teacher. I'm not talking about somebody who learns to teach. I'm talking about somebody who's just innately born that way. All right, that's your DNA, your default natural ability. You're able to sort of map the route forward for the next generation, and maps will be a very big part of what you want to see, where you've come from, where you are, and where you are going. All right, so it's very breathtaking to have someone who has this gift in the body of Christ, because they help you to see the entire landscape and the horizons, even going into the future. And but as I say, many of them pay a price, and some of them were forced to take poison. They became so unpopular. Some of them, you know, they were also able to you know, escape by writing books and publishing them after their death, and so on and so forth. All right, so that's the wheat, the seed of the wheat, the distinctive flavor, which is the didactic seed. Now let's move on to the diaconic seed. All right, the diaconic seed is that which speaks of excellence. All right, the barley. Now, how do you tell barley from wheat? There's two ways of doing it. One, when you see a barley field, it's always waving like that. That's the wave offering. All right, and because it's very delicate, and furthermore, when you take 3 of these seeds and you lay them end to end, it forms the imperial measurement for the inch, I-N-C-H, which the kings in England, it was so precise. And this diaconic modality or archetype or seed has this flavor about it. It's full of, you know, it's full of exactness and excellence, and it executes and implements plans very, very well. And you don't have to tell or instruct a diaconic barley seed in the kingdom of God. They just know what to do. I'm personifying these 7 different seeds for you so that you understand what is a barley seed. And could this be your family's coat of arms? I'm going to show you the coat of arms for Singapore when we come to the date palm. Okay, they all have meaning and symbolism. All right, now let's take a look at the diaconic seed. The DNA for it, once again, firstly, it has this passion for excellence and speed and accuracy, just like the Formula One team, you know, changing a tire and filling up the gas tank in under 2 seconds. And then you can also see the way in which the diaconics, they adhere to a plan, a script, or a score. In this case, a commercial airline pilot would be a good example of a barley seed. The barley metaphor for living life well and excellently. All right. So they exceed expectation. This is the way they interact with the world. And the way that they see the future is by taking a look at the plan and planning the future. So for a diaconic, for the barley seed, this is that flavor that is extremely detailed. And, nobody does it better. The old James Bond song, fixing on your goals and taking concrete steps toward it. If this is you or your family tree or your family motto or logo or coat of arms, then you will be into things like chocolates, luxury branded chocolates, branded watches like Rolex and so on and so forth. You will be dealing with cheeses, for example, the little town of Camembert, less than 200 people, and yet every five-star, six-star hotel has these cheeses in the fridges, or this Korean master craftsman, for example, or the great athletes of the world. This is not an updated version. I really should have had Usain Bolt, the way that they consult their coaches, and they really find ways of breaking records and solving problems. This is a chocolatier from the Lindt. I still don't find there's any better chocolatier than those coming from Zurich in Switzerland. So these are the 10,000-hour people, okay, who have this incredible ability when they come together to win awards and to wow audiences and to break records. And this is how they operationalize excellence peer to peer. All right, together with their other, and they can be born handicapped, and they will still break records and still take part in the Paralympics and win awards and so on and so forth. Nothing stops a diaconia. All right, so this is the diaconic barley. Did I say barley seed? Okay, I think I did. All right, now we come. So these are the two grasses. Now we come to the 4 trees. All right. Now, for family, it could also be the tree that you are under, sitting under different trees. Remember, Elijah, he was under the juniper tree. Well, he was under the wrong tree. All right. Remember Jonah? He was under the beanstalk. He was under the wrong tree. Whenever you sit under the wrong tree, you will get depressed or burnt out. All right. Learn the lesson from the prophets. All right. So let's take a look at this first vine tree. All right. The eleemosynary vine, or the word elios in the Greek, it means mercy. All right. And grapes, they they produce vintage wine, as we said earlier. When the vintage is crushed underfoot, right, in a vat. So too, David, remember the little lad in Saul's court that, with his slingshot. When he appeared, he brought help to Saul and his troops in the valley of Elah. Okay, they were quivering, right? They were shaking in their boots. And their knees were knocking because they had a problem. They had a big problem, all right? A 9-foot problem, or even bigger problem. I don't know how many feet that this Goliath was, all right? So this David, the moment he appeared, the moment he came into the scene, what happened was that peace came. The words that he uttered and the response to the challenge to Goliath brought a calm and brought a a sense of peace into the heart of Saul. And that's the reason why Saul gave him permission to go into battle just with his slingshot. All right. So the eleemosynary proclivity or tendency seeks to staunch the bleeding as a good Samaritan alleviates the pain of the sufferer, which is why, by the way, that wine is called the drink of kings among the tribes of Israel, because the wine is alcoholic and it is able to bring a sense of calm or peace. And sometimes if you're anxious or, because of something going on, remember what Paul said to Timothy, take a little bit of wine for your stomach. Okay, it's just to calm you down. There's a sense of calm. And you'll remember the Samaritan, he poured oil and wine. Okay, so we'll deal with olives in just a moment, but wine was one of the items that was poured into the traumata, into the wound of the guy who was beaten up on the road to Jericho. So let's go and take a look at the elemental traits of the grape or the vine tree. Perhaps this is your tree that you are sitting under. All right. The first important distinctive flavor is that of the most valuable player component. They are everywhere on the field. If you were to use the metaphor of rugby, this is the positionless player, all right? And they will bring the team that's losing on the downside, they will bring them up, and to defeat and to bring the morale of the team up. They're all over the place. And in a way, they are attacking. They're harassing the opponent when they attack, and then they are defending. So they're running up and down. Perhaps you can think of some footballers in the Premier League that their names are like that. All right. So they're really rescuers. That's what an Elias is. That's what the vine does. It brings rescue. The St. Bernards, they have a little barrel of whiskey around, fermented, whiskey around their neck, and they go and dig out people in the avalanche and give them a drink to calm them. All right. Next, the characteristic of the vine is that of empathy and compassion. That's the way they interact with the world. They are truly friends. What a friend we have in Jesus. By the way, that's why Jesus' tree, his messianic symbol, is the vine. He says, I am the vine and you are the branches, all right? Abide in me. So there's a sense in which the bride of Christ also partakes of this tree, which is a mercy tree, or of always looking out for the other hurting person or bleeding person. That's very humanitarian. That's very eleemosynary. Okay, for example, Desmond Doss. Remember in the movie, Hacksaw Ridge. He goes in and all he wants to do is he wants to save wounded soldiers and drag them out of the battlefield. And another one is the leadership style. This is the leadership style of the vine or of the Elias. All right. How do they do that? What do? They lead by example. They are quintessential mentors. They take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. They show you, they don't tell you, they show you. And the one-on-one aspect of the Elias is the reason why you have great mentors in business. For example, you have many business mentors. And if you have a business mentor, you will be very fortunate because you have private tuition, as it were, one-on-one tuition with an expert in some particular field, financial or whatever business field. Then you have the way that the Elias-sons react and respond quickly to emergency situations, okay? And so you can see here that if you have someone who has no gifting in showing mercy, they do it out of duty, not out of compassion, okay? And things can go crazy wrong when that happens, all right? Because solutions are thought of, but they don't really meet the need of the hour, okay? Now, they're very non-judgmental, and they give on-the-job training, on-the-job training. They are very good at training new people, showing them the ropes of how to do things. And they're non-hierarchical. These people have a very flat organization. Everybody is the same, on the same level, and pitches in, and you'll find them, you know, like in business as well, like Mary Kay's associates or the Tupperware people, you know, the so-called multi-level marketing, but oftentimes they are led by rescuers who are helping you as a brother or a sister, as a friend, rather than as a boss or an employer, all right? What do they do? What is it that they, what gives them the kick? How are they wired? Well, eleemosinaries are wired due to their energy, their ability to remove wounds. That's when they are able to be like, you know, they're like the little mouse that goes up to the lion and pulls out the thorn from the lion's paw. And sometimes the lion eats them. But anyway, hopefully we recognize all of our Elias-sons, all right? And don't bully them, all right? Now, let's move on to the next tree. The next tree in this, the next agricultural product is the tree. And it's the fig tree. And it is a sign and a parable for the return of God's people back to the garden, all right? A return to revelation that empowers the soul, as Jesus said, to go and sin no more, okay? Giving the reasons why life is worth living and how tomorrow will be always better than yesterday in the land of Israel. So for the Israelite, this was the great discovery, one of 7 discoveries, all right? Now, how does this prophetia? Now, it's different from the gift of prophecy. That's a gift of the Holy Spirit, all right? That's spoken of in Corinthians for the establishing of local churches in specific geographical locations. This is not the gift of the prophecy. Neither is it the gift of the Son for establishing kingdom values. This is the gift of the Father, Abba Father's gift, one of 7. And you see this in variously with its 8 distinctive flavors, all right, of the fig. Take a look at the fig. It's very unique. It was used by Jesus to tell the time. It was able to see the future. Using the fig tree, you can tell when the summer is ended. And there's a timing for all these things we don't know about because we're all from the city. We're city-ku, okay? So we wouldn't know all of this. But when you read your Bible, you can see that the fig always had something for you, something to do with discovering times and seasons and future events, especially end time events, all right? Now, a very good example of that would be Nikolai Copernicus. Nikolai Copernicus was sitting under the fig tree when he wrote his thesis on the toppling geocentricity and saying that actually it's the sun that is in the center of our solar system, not the earth. And he was greatly persecuted for this bit of scientific research. And he said, don't publish my book until the day that I die. All right. So sometimes this kind of a discovery can provoke or cause adverse reaction among those that are hearing, and sometimes they pick up stones and they want to throw you off the cliff at Nazareth, just like Jesus. All right. So another aspect of the prophetia is that they can't help themselves but broadcast what they discover and they find without a filter, oftentimes. And you'll see this sometimes in so the best thing is to zip up your mouth and wait for 3 years to pass. Okay, no, I'm just being facetious. What you should do is to get out a piece of paper and start writing it all down. And that's the way that you're going to refine and really make great your ideas. And when then you broadcast and tell people your discoveries, you can do it with great confidence and style and organized thinking, rather than the disorganized person that you really are at home. All right. Maybe some of you are like you're sensing that you are like that, or maybe you married a prophetia. You just can't understand why your husband or your wife is like that. Well, this is the reason. If you've ever used that word, that derogatory phrase, okay, why are you so like that? Okay, why are you so like that? Okay, it's because of this modal, excellency. You are a genius in your own area, but sometimes you can't even tie your own shoelaces. All right, so what is it that the prophetia does best? It's he is the futurist, all right, and he's able to connect the dots and identify the trends. How does he lead? He does so by re-establishing, reinventing the wheel, for example, or the mousetrap. And what everybody else does, they do it in a different way. All right, they realign the focus, and sometimes they can be confrontational because they're very stubborn about their gift of the eye. This is the gift of the eye. There are 7 parts of the body. This is the eye gift. All right. Now we're not going to go into the 7 parts of the body. That might be a different seminar. All right. But right now we're talking about the seeds, the 7 seeds. And this one has to do with the vine. Now, how do they solve problems? They occupy uncontested space. They are blue ocean specialists. They don't like red ocean. Red ocean is where the sharks are already feasting and the water is bloody and made red. They like blue ocean. They like to swim away from the crowd. They don't follow the crowd. They follow the cloud. And they go where no one wants to go. They stay there until God tells them to leave. And they never ask when that should be. All right. And for that reason, they are like John the Baptist kinds of people. And many in Christendom and Judaica, they have this kind of monkish kind of monk in the cave kind of proclivity. Now, all of these have to be redeemed, by the way, because there were many monks that were unredeemed. All right. A good example was Rasputin in Russia that opened the door to World War I when his counterpart, Sigmund Freud, in 1800s, the late 19th century, opened the other door from Germany's side. And that's why World War I happened, because of prophetess who dabbled into hypnosis. They dabbled into all sorts of the dark arts and so on and so forth. And they manipulated things, and they drew the attention of the demons. That's why it's so important to stay away from these things. Even if you do have a child who is just very naturally perceptive and insightful, you do need to redeem these gifts. And then they can, really, you can see them shine in being very non-conventional and non-stereotypical in their thinking. Now, one of the downsides is that they're constantly coming out with new vocabulary for you to learn, and can be a little bit esoteric and difficult to understand. Wow, it's 10:15. My goodness, time has really flown. I'm so sorry. I'm supposed to. Anyway, let me just finish this. Prophetia, the next is, how do they gain energy source? It is by pushing the envelope and constantly testing the boundaries and pushing the boundaries. And that too can be, needs to be redeemed. All right. Where are we? All right. The pomegranate seed. This is the modality of the one who leads, and not by might or by power, but this is the Christian way. This is the Jesus way of leadership. And of course, the idea here is of the Commonwealth of Israel. All right, the team, not just Israel, but also those that align themselves with the Messiah, Jesus from Israel. We become part of the Commonwealth of Israel. And you'll remember that this particular proclivity or archetype is greatly to be praised, because it is this distinctive that many explorers and leaders had. For example, Shackleton, who changed his mission when his boat was crushed by ice, and his new mission was to bring everybody back home safely. All right, but they do have this blind spot, right? They delist people, and they tend to, and that's because they're so mission focused. They're so focused on obtaining the mission and to expand. They're called expansionists. They expand and enlarge the boundaries, and they're energized by discovery of new lands and new ways of doing things, and bringing the whole team and setting the team to impossible challenges. Impossible is nothing, says one of the advertisements for the Nike, I think it was. And they direct and they correct and they perfect the team. So if you're on that kind of, if you have that kind of boss or that kind of a leader, then you will have to be ready to be corrected. And if you are, sensitive and easily offended, then you don't want to go near this kind of people, all right? But they don't mean to offend you personally. It's just that they're casting the vision all the time. They are casting the vision. They're very decisive and determined to move in a particular direction. They have very big signatures, they're in literal, as well as they leave behind a very big signature. And they make use of this technology, and they harness the talent and human capital of the team to ask, what happened, what went right, what went wrong, and why, what lessons did we learn? They review and so on and so forth, and they are very missional in their orientation. Like the Iron Lady, for example, she ruled, as it were. She was the companion, the executive wing of the Buckingham Palace. All right, the prime minister in a cabinet of men. She was leading as the Iron Lady, based on conviction, not consensus. So this is the pro-epistemic leadership, obsessed with moving forward and so on and so forth. So this again has to be redeemed. This seed has to be redeemed, and we need to really make sure that it doesn't turn into some horrible leadership character like Adolf Hitler or Napoleon or someone, a Mao Zedong, or someone who killed millions of people. No, that's not the way to go. Again, it's not by might or power. That's why the fruit, the tree of the pomegranate, is shown, because these are the gentle giants, and they're able to really bring about great change. And they're the only ones that the Lord really trusts. When he wants to get something done, he'll call someone sitting under the pomegranate tree. All right, let's go to the next tree. And this is the inclusive tree. This is the paraclectic tree. This is the olive tree. And in scripture, in Romans 9, 10, and 11, you'll find all about the olive tree and how the wild and the cultivated live together in unity. And, they become one stock, one new man, as it were. And, the idea that what makes us different also is what makes us strong as one spiritual Israel. So you have to understand that if you're sitting under that tree, it is the olive tree, that means that you are able to be, bringing about harmony and inclusivity in your sphere of interest, bringing people to the table through dialogue and laughter and fun, and motivating them to do things they never thought they could do. All right. To train people, or to coach. This is the quintessential coach that speaks from experience around the campfire of experience. All right. And that's the way that they interact with the world. They widen the circle. They keep widening the circle. That's how they lead, by the way. They lead through, the more we are together, the happier we'll be. And your friends are my friends, and my friends are your friends. That sort of a thing. That idea of, no stupid question. No one is redundant. Everyone is important. Every voice must be heard. That's how they really create the future, actually, through constructive ideas that flow fresh and like fresh bubbling water, white rapid water. There's a freshness. There's nothing stale or nothing canned about his leadership style. That's why these are very popular leaders. If you have someone like that follows and invites you to their team, then that becomes quite enjoyable. Okay, they're hardly ever moody. They always have a smile on their face. They work hard. They don't need to work hard to put that smile on their face. That's just naturally them. Okay, the rest of us, we can't do this. All right, we have to put on a fake. We have to fake it, right, and pretend that we're happy. But these people are really happy, right? They're just naturally like that. Okay, maybe a lot of Filipinos are like that. I don't know. They call them the happiest people in the world, but not everybody is like that. There are some very astute Filipinos. In every culture, you'll have all 7 of these seeds, all 7 of these modal excellences, the way that they work winsomely to solve problems, and they are very inclusive in their dialogue, the way that they learn, and the way that they mentor and peer-to-peer help others. The black dog here would be an example of coaching the brown dog to get a better performance, for example. And in business and in terms of society, the Parakleo is expert at scaffolding new ideas. So they'll come alongside a project and they'll help you to build your idea up. And then once it's completed, that scaffolding will come down. Okay, that's what makes them tick and what ticks them off. All right, they love to have this ability to come alongside as a coach or a Parakleo. All right, I think we've almost come to the end. The last one is that of I lost my place already, but anyway, the date. All right, this is an interesting one. The tree of the date. This speaks of governance and of rulership, and the glory of structure, the beauty of holiness, all right, and the strength of order, right, and the power of organization required for human flourishing in the house of Israel. We see this in the case of Deborah. We see this. She was sitting under the palm tree. This date is talking about the date palm. It's connected, by the way, not only to dates. There are many other products. In Asia, we have the coconut, but it's still the date tree. The species, the DNA of the date palm is the same as or close to the DNA of the coconut palm and the oil palm. They all have the same shape and this quite similar DNA. All right, so let me end, I think, with this date, the description of the 8 DNAs or default natural abilities. If this is you, you will be maximizing, managing in order to maximize, and you make room for God to act. Okay, and this is some sort like the Queen of England. If you study her history, the longest reigning monarch, the way that she makes room and she rules on her knees. She makes room for God to act in a redeemed way. Not every metadynamic genius is redeemed, of course, right? But if you have a redeemed one, they do a lot of good for the society. They love to give, but not just money. They give shape to society. They love to give not just seed for the sower, but bread to the eater, but seed to the sower. And that's what makes them genius, right? And they have a sense of long-term, they're able to spot and invest something that's going to go up, blue chip kinds of sense. And then they are able to control and coordinate all of the assets within the organization, harnessing the talent and human capital to achieve the common good. And then, of course, you have their ability to know what to do next. And then after that, okay, so they internally restructure and they're able to make it strong and quickly. They do things that other people find very difficult to get their heads around, especially numbers. So if you're not a numbers man, then you're probably not a metadynamic genius. All right, these are organizational geniuses. They're able to take a mess, a million pots, and sort and categorize and segregate, and they have this innate capacity to itemize and categorize and compartmentalize. Perhaps this is a reflection of Singapore's early history, when the Chinese leadership, many of them had this metadynamic genius within them. Okay, and of course, when you get a whole bunch of them together, then what you get is you get a tipping point. And this would be example in the industry of bottling and of port and so on and so forth. Okay, Jesus once said, "What I do now, you will only understand later." That is a very metadynamic statement because he organizes things and the children don't really quite understand what it is that he's doing. All right, and then we have resource curation. And you are a custodian of what is entrusted and you run a tight ship. So metadynamics are like the vertebrae. The date palm is like that vertebrae that goes right up into the head and is responsible for internal control. They're the ATCs, in the tower control that every pilot needs to report to. All right, they can see things. That's why this is the hat of every housewife, by the way. A common complaint of husbands, especially when they come into a little bit of money, they want their freedom from their wives, right? And they say that, oh, my wife is too controlling. Well, it's not that. It's because God made you as an Ezer Kenegdo to be in the tower control. And you can see things that your husband, the fighter pilot, he can't see things. He can't see the enemy coming from a different direction. So husband and wife need to work together, just like a queen has to work together with a prime minister. And those are two, the foundation for constitutional monarchy, as you see in Buckingham Palace and 10 Downing Street. Those are two different two different flavors, distinctive flavors. All right, so we've come to the end of the presentation. Perhaps you may have some questions, and I'm going to stop the recording at this time. And